I mean, they keep coming up with these plans. They've already passed legislation. It doesn't seem to make any difference. In fact, it makes it worse.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister tried to change the national political conversation from strikes to his turbocharged plan to tackle the asylum seeker and small boat crisis. What did Labour make of it? Let's speak to Emily Thornberry, the Shadow Attorney General. Good morning to you. Hi there, Emily.
Good
Can you
morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we've got you now. We'll get to the strikes in a moment. Let's start with this asylum plan. There's presumably parts of this plan that you agree with. The idea of
Yes.
employing more case officers feels like a sensible one, for example.
I'm afraid what I do, Stig, is I step back and I look at all this rhetoric, and then I think about all the promises that they've made before. I mean, they keep doing this. I don't know if you remember. I mean, Priti Patel, I think, at one stage said that she was going to halve the number of people coming over in boats within a few months, and actually went up 20 times. I mean, they keep coming up with these plans. They've already passed legislation. It doesn't seem to make any difference. In fact, it makes it worse. I mean, the asylum and immigration system is broken, and the Conservatives have broken it.
Do you feel it's legal, with your legal expertise, to say something like Albanians are unlikely to deserve asylum and therefore there should be a special system for them that gets them out of the country quicker? Do you think that will work legally?
I think what you need to do is you do need to assess each case individually. I mean, I actually look at it as a constituency MP. And I think to myself, for an individual coming into my surgery, would it be right to just, assume, not even just assume, but then say there is no other evidence we're prepared to look at further than you are an Albanian. And therefore you can't possibly be here. You can't possibly have any legitimacy in your claim. I mean, we don't know until we've actually spoken to the woman whether or not she has been trafficked, for example. I mean, there does need to be assessments made. You can't just have a blanket rule. I understand, the system of safe countries, and clearly that has been used with other countries. So, but you still need to make an assessment on each case.
The problem is if you do that, it takes a lot of time. There's always appeals, and that's one of the difficulties we have. We seem in this country, for all our rhetoric
Well,
about
yeah, but
asylum,
hang on a minute, Stig. I mean, there's always been a backlog. There's always been waiting lists. It has always taken too long, but it has never been as bad as this. I mean, it has got so bad, and the Home Office has simply not been making decisions. And now you hear from the Prime Minister. What do you hear? You hear him saying, "Oh, we're going to get rid of the backlog." You go, "Oh, that's good. How are you going to do that?" "Oh, we're going to double the number of staff." Well, frankly, that's not enough. In any event. But then you look at the detail of what he's really saying. He's saying the backlog, as we define it, is everything from before June this year, and it's going to take us a year to get rid of the backlog. So by the end of next year, let's be generous. Let's say what the Prime Minister says is right. By the end of next year, he'll still have 18 months worth of backlog to get rid of. Do you see what I mean?
yeah.
I mean, these plans don't work. It is all rhetoric. It's all they're just trying to get themselves good headlines. And when you look at it and you just go, well, that sounds good. How does it work? It falls to pieces.
What about this idea as a concept that asylum seekers aren't allowed to work in this country? Could that be a big change that happens when we have a workforce crisis in this country? We are having people coming in, as we say.
Mm.
Could we change the rules so asylum seekers could work? Oh,
I personally think that the biggest thing we should change is we should change the way in which we do our asylum and immigration policy. And we should make sure that we have a system which is firm, which is fair, and which is fast. The reason that it's so unfair on asylum seekers that they're languishing away in hotels is not fair on them or their families or frankly the British state who's having to support them for years on end. It's because the system takes too long. If we could make a decision quickly, then people could know one way or the other, are they going to be allowed to stay or aren't they going to be allowed to stay? If they're allowed to stay, they can actually start their lives. The number of people I have coming into my surgery who say to me, Emily, it's like me and my family are just holding our breath
yeah.
for months, for years on end, just wanting to start our lives again, to contribute to this country. We don't want to live on charity. We don't want to live on taxpayers' money. We want to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. But, I do think that people need to have their status regularized as quickly as possible. And that is something which the Home Office has completely lost control of.
Yeah, you both agree on the end. It's just the means to get there. Let's talk about the strikes briefly,
Yeah.
if we may. Nurses to begin with. The chief nursing officer has said lives will be put at risk, people will not get chemotherapy treatment, and that they feel let down by the union. I suppose in the end, we know that a service on its knees will get worse tomorrow. Unquestionably, it will get worse tomorrow when people go on strike. People will suffer as a result of it. Do you think that there is a moral case for the nurses to call the strike off?
I think that reading through the what it is that the nurses' managers have said and what the nurses have said, it does seem to me that they both want the same thing. They want people who need emergency help, who need help, who are in extreme circumstances such as case cancer patients. They both want them looked after. The nurses are saying, actually, we've agreed various things. These letters are out of date. I mean, I don't know. What we need is for the nurses and for their employers and the government to be sitting around the table and negotiating a way out of this impasse. I was on your program months ago when the rail strike was starting, and I said at that point we have to be really mindful of the possibility, and I was warning that the government was likely to be using this situation, manipulating this situation for its own political advantage because of some warped sense that somehow or other it's going to be to the Tories' advantage, and they'd be able to whack Labour and the unions if there were strikes. And what have we seen? We've seen the government refusing to get round the negotiating table, refusing to bring people together. We had the ridiculous sight, didn't we, of the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care saying to the nurses, "Oh, come in and have a cup of tea. Oh, let's talk about everything, but let's not talk about one brass penny that you might be able to have more than the offer that we have given." That is no way to negotiate out of a strike. There is no way to sort out an industrial problem. That is playing games, just like you did, I think, with the transport minister arriving at the last minute when it looked like we were about to get a settlement, and he arrives and then he starts talking about trains only having one person on them, just the driver and
Mm.
nobody else. Bringing that in as a condition at the last minute, and you have to wonder, does the government think that it has a positive role in this, or does the government think that actually its role is to be just causing trouble and not even seeking to get a resolution of these strikes? Because nobody wants to be on strike. Anybody who's on a picket line today does not want to be there. It is a result of failure and failure of negotiation. And negotiation needs to have goodwill on both sides,
Yeah.
and that we are failing to get.
Emily Thornberry, thank you for joining us today.